So that's why you should do it effectively, okay? Because it sucks if you do it wrong. Now that Roberto left, he's a big fan of pair programming. So, pair programming has the potential to improve your productivity a lot, and it's also a potential disaster. So if you do it wrong, well, you're in trouble. And if you do it wrong, you will be lucky if you notice that you're doing it wrong, because sometimes you're doing it wrong and you don't know, okay? And it's dragging you back, and you hate it, and your team hates it because you're doing it wrong, okay? So it's not easy. The only easy thing about pair programming is underestimating it, okay? I'm Iván Stepaniuk. I look much better in this picture than in person. And that's my Twitter. And I try to tweet useful things, not about hamburgers and beers and this kind of thing I eat. So you can follow me. I don't, and I have my tweets to prove it. Maybe some retweets, perhaps. Okay, but don't believe what I say about pair programming, okay? They are these guys who were reforming, like Big Tiger, Jim Big Tiger Ramsey. Pair programming makes developers work harder than they have ever worked before. Roberto will be happy, and if there is any CEO left here, they will be out of skepticism already. Okay, this is true. It's really draining sometimes, and it's more or less the basis of why it works. Okay. Focus. Why it works? Why is it draining? When you're working with your pair, you have completely undivided attention on the task. Okay. How much time do you spend working alone? How much time do you spend in the zone? We like to call it the zone. Okay. It's maybe like 3 hours a day, at most, with luck. Some days none. Okay. For me, especially. This also means less time on Facebook, less time on Twitter, less time checking emails. Also, less time on company emails that sometimes are also a waste of resources. You know, people like to respond with reply all, and you know what happens. You end up reading things that won't help you finish your task. Okay? In pairs, progress is faster. We can work longer without losing headway. And quality is higher. Ron Jeffries. I know if you know this guy. Quality is on blue because it's the other, in my opinion, the second most valuable thing you will get from pair programming. Okay? You will get quality. You will get productivity and you will get quality. And suppose this set on the left are the mistakes you will make, and the set on the right is the mistakes that your partner will introduce. So what's in the middle? What's the intersection? The intersection is crap, okay? It's the crap you will deliver to your customers or to your users. But this intersection will be smaller than any of the other sets. Okay? And it will be so smaller that in the end you will offset any time you lose or anytime you invest in being two people working in the same computer, okay? So, enough evangelism already, okay? The topic of the talk is how to do it effectively, but I will assume that we all agree that it's something good, okay? That's why the talk is an intermediate talk and not a beginner's introduction to pair programming talk. There is this paper, Strengthening the Case for Pair Programming. If you are looking for numbers or more scientific data on pair programming, Laurie Williams, Robert Kessler, Ron Jeffries, and Ward Cunningham wrote this paper. University of Utah, some of them, some of other universities I don't remember. Sorry. I was published in the IEEE magazine, by the way, if you want to look for it. Okay, and these guys are not like the apostles of the church of pair programming. They just got gray hair. Okay, and they are programming since before you knew what a computer was, and since a lot of you, even the ones with a little bit of gray hair, were already working with computers. Okay, we are young in comparison, and they have a lot of experience in a country that was way ahead of us in these matters. And these are the guys who had got the money, okay? Working with pair programming. Just to name a few, okay? eBay, CoStar, Facebook, Twitter. Twitter, you know Twitter? Say Groupon, Atlassian. Atlassian, the one that makes the t-shirts. Most of my t-shirts are Atlassian made. So that's it, end of the evangelism. What is pair programming? Two developers working in the same computer, sharing the same computer, okay? This is the most basic set, one keyboard. There are two main roles. One is usually called the driver, and the other one is called the navigator. The driver types, and the navigator doesn't type. The navigator observes, and basically tries to think about the next step, okay? And also tries to think in a higher level of abstraction and takes notes. This, I will talk about rows a little bit more in a minute. So two keyboards, one monitor. This is another setup. It's a little more comfortable because you don't have to swap the keyboard all the time, so you can be sitting in your place. But it's also it has a problem also that if sometimes you use the keyboard as a token to change pairs and to control who's actually typing. So if you have two keyboards, you lose these tokens. You have to be aware that to keep changing rows even if you have the possibility not to change rows. This is the same just with two monitors. This is what I use in the office. It's the same, clone the screen, of course. So it's also about being comfortable, okay, and not being like on top of each other. And remote pair programming. This is a topic for an entire book, so we won't stop here a lot. It's perfectly possible. I will recommend you that you only do remote pair programming with people you know well, or with people that already have a lot of experience pairing remotely, because not being able to see your partner's face is a little bit more complicated. It's not impossible, it's just a little bit more difficult. So if pairing is already difficult, well, this is more difficult, okay? It's not that something extraordinarily difficult anyway. Pair programming do get comfortable, okay? Work in a comfortable place where two people can work together, side by side. Office cubes are terrible for pair programming, or these kinds of desks that have like a corner, the typical desk. This is terrible because you cannot sit together, you cannot fit. There is always one sitting in the back. Okay, communicate often, talk a lot. Talk, but also listen, because and when I say listen, I say listen. I don't mean hearing, okay, but listening what your partner has to say. Be humble, but also be confident. I know it may sound a little bit contradictory, but it's not if you think about it. Okay, it's not contradictory. Humble and confident about your code, about your knowledge. Rotate. Okay, rotate often the roles. Okay, you have to. You would read if you look literature, you would read 1 hour. 1 hour is way too much. I would say 10 minutes. I know where these people got this 1 hour thing. Okay, 10 minutes is already like a lot for being there, like watching what your parent does. And about this, there is TDD. What does TD have to do with pair programming anyway? Well, the thing is, there's something called ping-pong pair programming. I don't know if you heard of it. Some now, like this. And the basic idea is that one of the programmers writes a failing test. The other programmer writes the code to make it pass, refactors, write another failing test, and pass the keyboard, and so on. There are other variations, but this is the most common one. So it's like a ping pong, and because tests are written more or less fast in like minutes intervals, okay? So you get a very nice, if you do it right, you get a very nice flow with this, because you can work, you know, very tight and with a lot of concentration. Be patient, okay? This is also very important. I told you to be patient. Well, it might sound a little bit obvious, but it's not. Okay, I'm looking for the time cue I have here somewhere. What time is it? Okay. Okay. It's common to, you know, be pointing at mistakes. You forgot a semicolon there. Okay, that's not necessary. The IDE, if you are using type language or even if you're not, will mark that error. Give your partner some time to correct the error. Nobody wants a backseat driver, you know, like when driving and you have your grandma, you're going too fast. And spend some time explaining your magic tricks, you know, like key shortcuts you have. How do you do that? Okay, you explain. You don't say Control RT in Visual Studio, Control 1 in Eclipse, your 12-finger key shortcuts in Emacs or whatever you use. So patience is very important. And this guy, Joubert, said, to teach is to learn twice. This is very important. When you explain to your partner, you are actually learning, even if you know what you're doing. Okay, explaining is a moment of illumination for yourself. It's said that the best moment in a pair programming session is when you have to rotate pairs, not rotate the rows, but rotate pairs. Okay, because this is also recommended not to be the same, the whole day pairing with the same person. If you rotate rows, you have to explain to the next one that comes, what are you doing? What were you doing during the last hour or so? So this is the most productive moment, because you have to explain so much that you realize that you were doing something wrong, okay? Or you realize that it's difficult to explain it because the code sucks, or because it's not expressive. You have to go through the names of what you, and this name, well, you know, we couldn't think of anything better. Okay, so rest. It's very important. Hammocks on the beach are very good for resting, but in the office they are not very common. So I recommend you some other ways, like pomodoros, for example. I don't know if you know pomodoros. Raise your hand who don't know what a pomodoro is. And it's not a tomato only in Italian, but it's also a technique for time boxing. Okay, you work during a set amount of time, and then you rest for a couple of minutes. Okay, this avoids you to be exhausted because you have to talking with your partner there, like working. You cannot be you cannot sustain that for 3 hours. You will die. And if you are both tired, you will start producing bad code. There is no one to rebuke the couple, okay? There is no one, not a third person to say, oh, look at these tired people, what are they doing? Okay, and most importantly, have fun. Programming is lots of fun. We go to groups after work to do katas, the same kata again, the Galder rows again. Why? Why again the same kata? Because it's fun. And programming, working with someone else is funnier than working alone. Like poker is funnier than solitary, for example. Okay, I won't get into other examples. I think you must get the picture. Okay, powerful imagination. Don't. Okay, don't be. Sorry. One last thing. Okay, I will go on with this. Sorry for that. Don't be bossy. Okay, this is something I tried very hard to correct this on myself. Try to hack your body language. I know if somebody was here in the talk, but also to try to hack your language. Okay, sometimes we don't notice we are being like too, using imperative, for example, a lot, and using third person. So try to use first person. Okay, plural first person suggestions. Spanish is very rich in conditionals and real future conditions. And that in English I don't even remember how to make them up. So if you say, for example, why don't we, okay, that's better than put that there, okay? Because at the end, even if it sounds like something obvious, at the end this makes the pair worse, okay? Worse the pair flow. And don't let yourself be intimidated. This is very common, especially if you pair with somebody that has more experience, like a senior gray-hair programmer, which is somebody that knows the domain better. Don't let yourself be intimidated. You know a lot, and this is not a class. It's a sharing work. So it's very important that you don't let yourself be intimidated. Okay. And don't be quiet. I said before. This is also very common. People that is, back sitting, sitting in the back, like leaning backwards. Also hacking your body language, not being into the pair, but letting your partner work. That's not pair programming. That's looking how somebody else works. Okay. Especially if you disagree with what your partner, don't expect the roles to swap and then you change everything, okay? You have to be discussing what you're doing, okay? And don't give up so easily. Pair programming is very difficult at the beginning. Expect a very steep learning curve. You will feel frustrated at first, but give it some time. It requires practice. Pair programming is a software development technique. It's not just a collaboration of two people. It requires practice, and you will improve from time to time. And also, it requires practice with your other. When you get practice with one of your colleagues, then you change to an S1, and the dynamics are different. So you will need practice with each of them. Okay, it's not. There are no silver bullets. And don't suffer in silence. This is also very important. Especially if some coach came to your company and say, we will try pair programming, okay? The pair has, both programmers have to be, both developers have to willingly do the pair. How to do that is outside the scope of this talk. But if you don't want to do it, don't. Okay, because you will screw up. Then, of course, if you don't do it, you will need some other ways of code reviews, fake inspections, whatever you want to use, but not doing it unwillingly will only, affect your team in a negative way. Newcomers, newies, juniors, becarios. How to pair with a newbie? Well, Patience will be a little bit more important here than normally. As I said before, well, by explaining, you will also learn. This phrase repeats and repeats in history. Seneca also said this same thing, and the brother of the one who invented the atomic bomb, the other, I don't remember his name now, say the same thing in different words. By teaching, you learn. Okay. If your newbie partner doesn't understand what you're doing, it's maybe your fault, okay? Because everybody knows that expressive, good, clean code can be read by even your grandmother, okay? Einstein, I think he said, you don't understand anything you cannot explain to your grandmother. Well, and also push the keyboard, okay? Because maybe the newbie won't want to take it back because he's intimidated. Okay, so you push the keyboard. And then, well, you have the other side of it, how to play with a rock star. Okay, but not a rock star in the bad sense. I was looking at this slide. Not a rock star in this guy who thinks he's a rock star. I mean a real rock star. Okay, somebody that's you know that he's experienced. He's working on that domain for a long time, and you are the newbie. Or you're just a regular guy from the street, or you're just new in the company. Okay. Well, you have to remember that it's sharing work. So ask for the keyboard. Take the keyboard. Okay, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't have to let the roles be disrupted by this. Ask questions. As soon as you got lost, you ask questions. Okay? As fast as you can. Don't let the thing go on. Okay? Because the pair is not productive. The Chinese are amazing. They had Unicode like 2,000 years ago or so. With 7 bits, this will mean that I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. Okay, so if you're pairing with a rock star, you have to take the keyboard, because if you don't do, you won't understand. All the explanations will come through one ear and go outside from the other one. Okay, this is Confucius, by the way. And this is probably one of the most important things. Sharing. Share success. This is sometimes ignored. When you succeed, the pair succeed, not you. Okay? And it's very important to create this common shared feeling of success after you made, with every test. Okay? In the same way, if you fail, both of you failed. Okay? The pair failed. And this means no blaming. Okay? It's not his fault. Don't put me to pair with this newbie again. Or I cannot pair with the rock star. That's not allowed. If the pair doesn't work, you have the responsibility to break up at some time and change pairs. But it's important that you share failure and you don't point fingers after finishing. Anything else? Listen, I have some time. I will tell you something about the pair dynamics. There is something called tag teams. I don't have a slide for that. I didn't think I would have the time. Tag teams are another way of seeing the same thing. There are these guys who realize that pair programming, these classical roles of driver and navigator were not so clearly distinguished in some pairs, and they, I think I have their names somewhere.
How do you spell tag teams?
Tag, like when you run and you pass the tag. I don't even know how to say the word for that in Spanish, I'm sorry. Posta or relevo, okay? They argue that the paper is called the mysterious role of the navigator. It's called the paper, and I forgot the names of the guys. But the thing is that they argue that the roles are not so distinguished. Okay, that both statistically they were analyzing lots of groups speaking at the same time and writing notes on what they say in the conversations. And they found out that they were speaking more about chunks of code and not about different levels of abstraction. Well, and in the end, in the paper, they kind of put in doubt that pair programming is effective at all because of this, because it's not, if there are not two roles, how does it work? But the conclusion is that more or less works. The thing is that it doesn't matter. Pair dynamics are very different. With different people, you will behave different ways. There will be people more prone to take notes and not interrupting you, and there will be people like more actively collaborating on the same level of abstraction. And it's a matter of how it works for you. Okay, that's why I said that you have to learn how to pair with different people. Okay. So yeah, I think we have. I left plenty of time. The talk was short, so I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So let's go to the questions already.
So my first question is, I'll leave other people to questions before I ask the second one. My first question is, you mentioned that because I work in a French company, and there's a lot of people that use AZERTY keyboards. So that was almost solved by having two keyboards in a computer, so that's fine. But what happens when people are used to different IDEs or IDE setups with different commands, etc.? What do you do there?
You can't. I don't have an answer for that. Different IDEs. Some of your, this doesn't happen in all the scenarios. I understand there are some that are like this. We have one case. We are using a plugin for Visual Studio that is called Visual VI, I think. One of my colleagues likes VI a lot, and well, he enables this with a shortcut, so he can use the VI commands in Visual Studio when I use Visual Studio. I'm also used to VI, but I don't like mixing, and my head gets crazy. If I see Visual Studio, I don't type VI commands. And we also use different languages keywords, but I use the English keyboard and Spanish layout because I touch type, so I just change it with a shortcut. This shortcut in Windows, Alt-Shift. So if you have both languages configured, you can change the language with just a key.
But it can get more interesting with people that have the Borak, people that have these keyboards where they use the thumbs.
Yeah, well, that's in that case you have to plug both keyboards. This is something interesting, and some people may have accessibility problems. Maybe they use special keyboards for disabled people or special mice. Okay, so but that's not generally that's not a problem, because if you plug two keyboards in a computer, they work the same way. If you plug two mice, then they work together, so it doesn't matter. We also have, I know, a colleague of mine has this keyboard, how's it called, the Kinesis. I don't know if you saw it. It looks like from Star Trek. It's like two bowls with the keys inside like this. I couldn't possibly type there. But yeah, we plug the two keyboards, and each programmer uses their own keyboard. I don't think it's much of a problem. The IDE problem is difficult to solve. But it only happens with maybe Ruby, JavaScript, some languages that don't have a, well, I mean, if you use Eclipse and the other one uses NetBeans or IDEA, well, you will have to compromise. Or maybe you can switch it. If you switch it fast enough, you can have both open. If you have a lot of RAM.
Yeah.
More questions?
Well, so, hi, this is like too many questions. The first one is, do you pair program full time? So it's like Monday to Friday, all the time pair programming, or it's just a couple of days a week? And if so, if you're pair programming full time, are you still doing code reviews, or with pair programming you just drop the code reviews?
Good question. To the first one, we do as much pair programming as we can. Sometimes we cannot. And we cannot because of, well, different product lines. We are one team and we have many products, and sometimes we are not as many people as we would like to. We are like 8 or 9 programming now. So sometimes it happens that you cannot do it all the time. But we try to do it as much as we can, especially for production code. I mean that, for example, eBay, they do it like almost 100% of the time for production code. The thing is that that doesn't mean you will be 100% of your time pair programming. In the first place, that's not possible. Okay, because you will. Maybe it's possible if you work like 5 hours a day. Okay, if you work 8 hours a day, that's not possible. At least for me, it drains you a lot. But then programming is not the only thing you do. You have to write documentation, you have to speak to your product owner, you have to do grooming with your user stories for the next sprint with your teams. There are a lot of things you can do that are not programming. So it's not 100% of it. It's 100% of the time. It's never 100% of the time. I know if I answered 2 questions. Yes. And the second one was, sorry?
Code review.
Code reviews, yeah. We do code reviews in a group, okay? And I personally review the commits from my colleagues. We commit on green, so we have a lot of commits, but that makes it also easy to look at all the commits in sequence. And so I think it replaces code review, but it doesn't eliminate the need to gather a team and speak about it. So we have 1 hour a week that we can use to do a group code review. It's not as intensive as we would have to do if we were solo programming. The worst code we find in code reviews is the code that was programming by one developer. Alone. So more questions? Yeah. So wait, we have time, I think, because like 10 minutes more, so we can.
You mentioned that when programming with newbies, you have to pass the keyboard.
Just have your body language.
And so this is something that I've noticed also, and I've also noticed that, and tell me if this is working for you too, that you actually have to be at least 3/4 of the time having the newbie programming, and you're just looking at it. Instead of, it's not like 50-50 anymore.
My experience with programmers with less experience than me is generally outside of the company. Although some of them have less experience than me, they don't have less experience pair programming or less experience in the domain. So, but I think this is true. I know if it's this rule, like 3/4 to 1/4, but well, if you are being patient, it means that maybe you have to watch a little bit more, or just guide it a little bit. I don't think it's that much different. I don't think it's 3/4, But yeah, it's true that you have to give the new a little bit of time to compensate. Okay, it doesn't write as fast. Or it might have to ask questions, sometimes obvious questions that you have to answer anyway. So yeah, it makes sense. Questions? Yep.
It happens to me. I love programming, and I do well with a lot of my colleagues. But with one of them, we can do programming. We fight each other for the keyboard. It's only with him. I know.
He's the problem.
No, I know. I know the problem is patient. I don't know if you find yourself in that situation.
Yeah. Well, that also depends on how many are you in the company, because one of the solutions is not to pair with a person. People are different, okay? There are companies with people from 20 nationalities working in the same room. And there's I think there's a special line that separates somehow the Latins from the non-Latins, for example, and generates some incompatibilities with this. And also the Indians from the rest of the world. But I don't think there is a solution for that. People are different, and being professional means that you can cope with that, maybe with more difficulty. Okay, this is like when you're a doctor and it comes a killer with a wound. Okay, you might not like it, but you have to operate anyway. Okay, so try not to extend those sessions longer than needed. Break pairs more often. Okay, and try to minimize the risk. I think if you do it slowly, you can talk yourself into it. You can even say there is something I have mentioned. If you have problems with somebody in particular, even if you don't have problems, but you think it can be improved, you can do a pair retrospective. Okay, like not every week, but once a week. Maybe you could just openly say, look, we cannot pair together. Why? Okay, can we solve it? I know there are different approaches. I know it will depend on your partner and especially on you. It probably would be easier if your partner were sitting there saying the same thing. I know if he would say the same thing or if he will come. Maybe. I don't know.
I think it is just a matter of time. If we try again,
Okay, that's it. Okay. Thank you very much.